Good day, folks. Everything new under the sun. Here's an update to the timeline of the return of the Lord. Now, if you're one of my longer time subscribers, you know that I had this keynote presentation where I kind of track, when maybe the 7 year period could start, when the return of the Lord could happen. It is speculation. I don't know the date or time. Nobody does. But we're looking at events in Bible prophecy, and we're saying, you know what, these are great battles that haven't occurred yet, and these are things that seem to be shaping up in the world that look like the battles that are coming. Isaiah 17, destruction of Damascus; Ezekiel 38, the war of Gog Magog; Psalm 83, wars where Israel destroys an inner circle of nations before attacking an outer circle of nations, because defensively they need to take care of the enemy close to them before they battle larger enemies, i.e. Iran. And so we take a look at this timeline and we say, here we are, and how close could we be to the start of the 7 year period, to an antichrist figure appearing on the scene, implementing a new world economic order, implementing a mark of the beast type technology to track everybody and to limit your travel and to cut you out of the economy. If you, for example, don't support climate change, if you're traveling too much, or if you say hate speech in terms of their own idea of hate speech and censorship. And that's what they're doing in China with the whole social credit score thing. If you say something the government doesn't like, or you do something the government doesn't like, they just prevent you from buying a bus ticket or from buying a plane ticket, or maybe they limit the amount of food you can buy at a grocery store. They get you economically, and they will convince you to not step out of line because you're not going to be able to survive if you don't under those restrictions. And that's what the whole CBDC thing is going to bring in. It's going to bring in the power of the government to effectively data mine, figure out exactly what you're doing, where you're going, by the way you're spending your money. And if they don't like it, they're going to limit your money, and you won't be able to participate in the economy. And there will be, you'll literally be living in tents. You may be able to barter, but you won't be able to have insurance on your car. You won't have a car. You won't have a license. You won't have a mortgage, because the government is going to make it such that institutions won't do any business with you, and the government won't renew anything. So you won't be living in a house at that point in time. You won't be able to make money, because any company is going to require that you have, a social insurance number and bank accounts to accept the money that they would give you, etc. And they're not going to want to do any business with anybody who is outside of the economic system. So there will come a time where will literally be destitute on the side of a road in a tent, no way to make actual money in the economic system, because no one's going to want to do business with you. Anyways, I digress. Looking at this, and I think the War of Gog Magog is an interesting battle, and it could be shaping up. So let's take a look at a couple articles, and we'll come back to this timeline of the return of the Lord. This first one here is from Zero Hedge. Are we finally entering a phase of narrative collapse? Says an Oxford epidemiologist. So that's good. They're talking about the effects of lockdowns on children, and the fact that we can talk about it now means that there is a narrative collapse. It took a number of years, but people are starting to talk about excess deaths and the harms on children that lockdowns represented. It's a crime against humanity, I believe, and at one point, at some time, the world will recognize it, but all those involved may get off scot-free. It's a shame. It's an incredible period in the history of the world, and we try to protect our kids as much from this as possible. They're homeschooled, so they didn't have to deal with masks in school and the lockdowns and all the troubles. They were kind of used to being at home anyway. So here's an interesting one. And you might say, well, duh, that makes sense. China created COVID-19 as a bioweapon, claims a Wuhan researcher. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this on YouTube. Maybe their narrative might not have collapsed on YouTube. Chow Xiao asserts that the virus was deliberately engineered by China as a bioweapon. And watch for me to get a strike on this, and for my YouTube channel be taken down for medical misinformation. This is from Jerusalem Post, an article from JerusalemPost.com. So, yes, it was as we expected. It was that from the beginning. World powers, in the name of some sort of phobia, didn't want to mention it. They knew this all along. Your government knew this all along. Your military knew this from the start of the pandemic. They knew exactly where it came from. They were just muddying the waters because they didn't want to, potentially create, violence against particular sorts of people due to the origins. So there you go. I think we all knew that. All right, now into Israel. So this is the interesting stuff as it relates to the timeline of the return of the Lord. Now, Israel has been on the sidelines, basically, of the Ukraine conflict. Israel has interests on both sides. They have interests to stay on the good side of NATO, and they have interests to stay on the good side of Russia, and we're going to discuss that. But that could be ending soon. And Netanyahu is in the early stages of arranging a Ukrainian visit, and Russia's not going to like this. Netanyahu is in the early stages to visit Kiev. It says Israel's foreign minister has also urged the PM to meet with Ukrainian President Zelensky. The committee meeting comes in the wake of last week's comments from Kornichuk, the Ukrainian ambassador to Israel, slamming Israel's inaction in aiding Ukraine in its defense against Russian invasion. Now, you know that Israel has a lot of technology, incredible technology. In fact, they have defensive systems against hypersonic missiles, which is currently Russia's advantage in Ukraine. And so if Israel sent some of this technology to Ukraine, that would be basically taking away Russia's advantage. Russia does not like that. And so this is a bad thing for Russia if Israel gets their technology in and starts defending against Russian assets. And you know that Israel has a lot of experience against Russian assets. Air defense systems. They know exactly what's happening with the S-400, S-500 in Syria. They probably have ways to jam it or get around it. Israel has the best technology and the smartest people in the world. And if you take a look at general cross section of IQs, the Jews are some of the most intelligent people in the world. So, and I don't think. I think part of that is a blessing of God, and being the chosen people, but they have some incredible technology. So Israel's looking to go there. They've been putting this off because Russia again does not like this, and Zelensky wants a lot of Israel's technology. Here is Al-Arabiya.net. Israel summons Ukraine envoy over pro-Russian accusation. The Israeli foreign minister said Tuesday it was summoning Ukrainian ambassador for a clarification after U.S. embassy accused the current Israeli government of a clear pro-Russian position. Now, why would Israel be pro-Russia or be deemed to be that? Well, Israel has a massive interest in staying on the good side of Russia. Why? Because Russia's in Syria. Russia controls, for the most part, Syria. And Israel has agreements with Russia to be able to do surgical strikes in Syria without air defense, Russian air defense systems stopping Israel from doing that. Also, Iran and Russia are getting very, very close, strengthening ties. And so if ties decrease and weaken between Israel and Russia, that could mean that Russia goes fully on board with Iran against Israel. And do we have a situation where Russia comes against Israel? Well, yeah, that's the Gog Magog invasion. The Gog of the land of Magog, countries from the north, come down to Israel with Iran, with Turkey, Persia, and Turkey. And there's a hook in the jaw that draws them into the battle. And what is that hook? Well, it could be that hook, that Israel is helping Ukraine. And so that means if Israel's helping Ukraine with technology and beating Russia, then Russia's not going to have any reason to let Israel continue to bomb inside Syria or to do, keep Iran at bay and Russia may have significant interest in partnering further with Iran to attack Israel in retaliation. So this is interesting. So why has Israel been slow to support Ukraine? And I think this directly relates to Balaprosti. This is the Council on Foreign Relations, CFR.org. This big, dark entity, Council on Foreign Relations. Israel's government is grappling with moral imperative to help Ukraine in a war that recalls its own struggle to maintain sovereignty while acknowledging the cooperation with Russia is vital to its security goals. That's what it says there. So Israel has to play ball with Russia. Israel has walked a diplomatic tightrope as it tries to present itself as a potential mediator between Russia and Ukraine. Naftali Bennett is one of the only few Western-aligned leaders to have open channels with Moscow and Kiev, and he regularly speaks with Russian President Putin. Israel has strong cultural connection between both countries. 15% of the population are immigrants or descendants of the former Soviet Union, with most coming from Russia. Ukraine. I don't think that's the reason why they're so close. I think it's more because Israel wants and has to stay on Russia's good side for Syria. If we scroll down here, I think this is kind of the sum up. Israel, perhaps the main factor in Israel's official reluctance to criticize Putin harshly, is Russia's support of the regime in Syria. Everything that Israel is doing to battle Iran kind of hinges on how much support Russia is providing Syria and Iran. So, where both Russian and Iranian forces are present, Israel negotiated an understanding with the Russian military that enables Israeli forces to deconflict with Russian forces and strike Iranian targets in Syria. Israel views Russia's presence as a check on Iran's influence and therefore important protection for Israel's security. So if that agreement was to break down, if that ability for Israel to strike inside Syria was to break down and they no longer had that, that would mean Iran would likely have more support from Russia for a strike. That would mean Israel can't take out Iranian proxies in Syria, and that would mean there would be enemies on Israel's border, and that would then amount to Israel saying, okay, well, we can't strike in Syria anymore. Now we have to go to full out war against Iran because we can't do anything anymore. And I think this ultimately leads to Israel supporting Ukraine, Russia saying, well, we're not going to allow you to do stuff in Syria anymore. And that's going to present a situation where Russia and Iran will get closer and make that hook in the jaw. And then Iran might say, well, now's a good time then. You're not cooperating with them. They're attacking you in Ukraine or defending with defensive weapons. So if you want to prevent Israel from giving any more defensive weapons, hypersonic defensive weapons, to Ukraine, you need to go take out Israel because they have some of the best technology. Israel has technology that defends against probably pretty much all of Russian technology. I would suggest that Israel has the superior technology, and so if the existence of Russia or its superiority in Ukraine is attacked by Israel getting in there, that would be a hook in the jaw. As spoken about in Ezekiel 38, to draw Russia into battle with Israel, pushed by Iran, even pushed by Turkey, and to take out Israel so that their weapons stayed superior. And so that's a very interesting thing on the timeline of the return of the Lord. If we're getting close to that point where Israel is talking to Ukraine, and maybe decide to send defensive weapons, that's it for cooperation in Syria. That means, again, that there is incentive now for Russia to march on Israel, to take out all their intelligence, all their defensive weapons. And Israel has the best practice against Russian weapons, even their high technology S-500 defense systems and etc. on the ground in Syria, and they probably have ways to evade it, honestly, because they've been kind of poking and prodding while Russia has been actively there over many years in Syria. And that means this battle of Gog Magog is even closer and could come almost as soon as Israel decided to back Ukraine and send some defensive weapons. We're not quite there yet, but with Netanyahu going to Ukraine, that could mean that that timeline is now sped up. So if that occurs, that means we are getting closer to Isaiah 17, which I think happens before Ezekiel 38. See that in the bottom there, mentioning Isaiah 17. And so it could mean we're months away from a great battle in Syria and Israel against Iran, and even the marching of Russia on Israel to, again, attempt to protect their technological superiority in the Middle East, and to protect their allies as Israel makes friends with NATO nations and comes to an agreements with them. So this is very interesting, and I think this is a key milestone event that indicates that we're close. We're so close. I don't know when this is going to start, but boy, it's getting closer. The more Israel, supports Ukraine. So as always, I'll leave it there, guys. Thanks for watching. Add your comments to the video below. Let me know what you think. How close are we? And I think the time is running very, very short. It could be that we have, months left. And we know this Ukraine thing is supposed to wrap up by the end of the summer. Otherwise, U.S. is going to go a different way, I guess, or create some peace deal. So we'll see if the implementation or the delivery of some sort of defensive weapons in Ukraine from Israel helps the situation. And then ultimately, you would see Russia march on Israel because they took out their advantage in Ukraine. So that's kind of the way I see it. So thanks for watching. We'll leave there. We'll see you in the next video.